Lisa Su, AMD's chair and CEO, just said it. OpenAI is the ultimate power user of AMD chips, and she didn't stop there. AMD has a brand new multi-year deal to roll out 6 gigawatts of AI compute for OpenAI, real capacity, real timelines, and potentially tens of billions in revenue on the line. In a minute, I'll play you the clip so you hear Dr. Su in her own words. Then I'll break down why this deal targets inference at scale, how MI450 fits, and what it means for AMD's market share, margins, and the AI arms race. If you watch one video today, make it this one, and stay to the end for the path from the first gigawatt to the full 6. Before we roll, hit like, let's hit 1,000, share this, drop your take in the comments, and subscribe so you don't miss the next big move. Alright, let's hear what Lisa Su has to say. This video is brought to you by Value Stocks Investing Master Course. If you're looking to grow your wealth by investing in solid, undervalued stocks but not sure where to start, I created the Value Stocks Investing Master Course to teach you how to identify great companies, make smart investment decisions, and build a portfolio that lasts. Click the link in the description and pinned comments to get the course today and take control of your financial future.
Let's frame the opportunity, Lisa. You know, the market reaction is very clear, but for AMD and the AI industry at large, what do you think this represents?
Well, look, this is a huge milestone for AMD. You know, we are so thrilled with the partnership with the OpenAI team. And it's also, a huge moment for the AI industry because, when you get to the right down to it, you need more AI compute. I mean, that's where we are today. Compute is the foundation for all of the intelligence we can get from AI. And, we are a compute provider. We have spent years on our roadmap. We've spent years working with OpenAI and the team. And, together now we're embarking on, a massive build out of 6 gigawatts of AI compute. And it's a big deal for us, for our shareholders, for our teams, and for really, the partnership and the overall AI ecosystem.
Greg, I said at the top, the focus is inference. I think that's really important to be specific about what you will do with this capacity. So literally explain that part. And I'm conscious that, in the first instance, the first target is 1 gigawatt and then eventually 6 gigawatts. But what will you use it for?
Well, I think that the world continues to underestimate the amount of demand for AI compute, right? We've seen this explosion of demand with things like ChatGPT. We're at 800 million weekly active users now. This product didn't even exist 3 years ago. And we're in a position where we cannot launch features, we cannot launch new products simply because of lack of computational power. And we see these models continuing to get exponentially better. And I think we're just heading to a world where so much of the economy is going to be lifted up and driven by progress in AI. And so we're very much heading to a world by default that I think looks like a compute desert, right? That there's just not enough compute to go around. And so we're trying to build as much as possible, as quickly as possible. So we're starting with 1 gigawatt simply because you got to start somewhere.
Right.
But honestly, we're building as fast as we possibly can and trying to bring as much computational power to bear for the economy and for the world.
Lisa, this is such a big commitment to Instinct in particular. As a customer, does it make OpenAI the largest for that particular product?
Well, this is certainly the largest deployment that we have announced by far. I mean, 6 gigawatts of compute. As Greg said, we're going to start with the first gigawatt in the second half of 2026 on our new next generation MI450 chip. I think the thing to understand is, these types of partnerships actually take years to really get comfortable with the idea that we're going to, go all in together. And this is an all-in partnership in terms of building out, the AI compute that OpenAI needs for everything that they're offering to the world. So yes, it's a huge deal, and it also says a lot about how much needs to come together for this entire ecosystem to operate. So we are setting up. Certainly there's a lot of engineering work, but our teams are working together on hardware, software. We're ensuring the supply chain, all of those elements are set up and ready to deliver on this massive commitment.
Greg, talk us through a little bit about the players that you need to also lean on. This has been years in the making, as you say, with AMD, but what other cloud providers are involved? How are you thinking about this working with an Oracle or others out there?
Yeah, we really think of this as an industry-wide effort. And in general, we think that compute is something that does require the entire supply chain to really wake up and to really to start building much more than people were planning on. I think this starts from energy to try to get far more power to be built. Things like nuclear, I think, are going to be very important to come online. The cloud providers are an important part of this as well. So we're going to be deploying AMD in our own data centers. We'll be deploying them together with cloud providers. We have a deal with Oracle, lots of other cloud providers out there. You can really see that we're very much in we just want compute, as much compute as possible. We think this is important for the economy. We think this is important for the nation. We think this is important for humanity. And so really, we're working with everyone in this whole industry in order to get as much compute power online as quickly as we can.
Lisa, I'm sorry, specifics. Where is this data center going to be? Is it one single site? Is it Oracle that will partner with you on this?
Well, actually, what this really is an announcement of what AMD and OpenAI are going to do together. OpenAI has a lot of partners in terms of where they deploy. I imagine a lot of it will be in cloud service providers. It's really up to OpenAI and Greg and Sam and the team. But the way to think about it is for this amount of compute, it's going to have to be in a lot of different places. I mean, it's a massive amount.
Multiple locations.
Multiple locations. Right? I would imagine multiple providers to really get this online as fast as possible.
Greg, there is a lot of focus on where OpenAI is going to get the money from to fund all of this. Sam Altman's big picture commitment is well documented, right? And the numbers to his mind are in the trillions. But have you specifically thought about debt financing for this relationship with AMD? Have you thought about doing a specific equity raise? You are very committed across multiple projects.
Yeah, look, the way that I would look at this is that AI revenue is growing faster than I think almost any product in history. And that ultimately, at the end of the day, the reason this compute power is so important, is so worthwhile for everyone to build, is because the revenue ultimately will be there. Now, as a company that is trying to move as fast as we can, we look at everything, right? We look at equity, debt, we look at trying to find creative ways of financing all of this. That's been actually a huge focus of us for the past couple of years, is thinking about how can we possibly build the amount of compute that is required in order to really transform this whole economy into an AI-powered economy. And so I think you'll see lots of creative ideas, but fundamentally, I think at the end of the day, it is because we believe that
I'm sorry to jump in and interrupt, and 𝗗𝗟, just forgive me on this one. The condition of AMD issuing the stock to OpenAI requires you to spend money, basically, because you have to deliver that gigawatt of capacity first. Lisa, I have to ask you if you have assurances that OpenAI is good for it.
Well, let me be clear. I mean, this deal is a win for AMD, it's a win for OpenAI, and it's a win for our shareholders. And that's kind of the way we put this together. I have full confidence in OpenAI, Sam, Greg, Sarah. I mean, this is a massive opportunity for us. Right now, right here, it's about who has the most compute and how fast can we get it online. And we're committing to doing this together. And the fact is, as OpenAI buys chips, that's great for AMD. Our revenue goes up, our earnings go up. We expect that it will also be very, very accretive to our shareholders from day one. And as we do that, we're very happy to have OpenAI as a deep partner, and we win together. So it's like a virtuous, positive cycle in how we build out this big vision for having all this compute out there.
Right.
And yet we still question, as you were just talking about, Greg, some of the other supply chain elements. You're talking about the need for nuclear, for power. What's really interesting is are you feeling confident enough about the rest of the compute, the supply chain is there? Is this going to be US manufactured from your perspective, or are you looking at also building out internationally with AMD?
Yeah, we've been looking at really all options. Our preference and really the core thing that we try to do is build as much as possible in the U.S. And you can see the commitments that we've made over the past year. $500 billion of investment in the U.S. and that's not stopping. We're continuing to build. I do think that international, it is also going to be important for the world to have compute. I think that compute is going to become this national security strategic resource, and every country is going to need computational power. And so that we are really not limiting our sort of sites in terms of where to build, but we do think it is important that the U.S. leads in this technology, leads in computational power, and we're expanding the supply chain. But you can see that we've really been working with partners across the globe in order to actually meet the demand that we expect to be coming in upcoming years.
Lisa, the manufacturing of these chips, will you look to Intel at all for it, do you think, in the future?
Well, as you know, the supply chain is something that we work on, very meticulously. I think we have a very strong supply chain. We're certainly deeply partnered with, TSMC across the supply chain. Just to that earlier question, we're absolutely prioritizing building in the United States because I think that's super important. This is the U.S. AI stack. We want to have as much of it in the U.S. as possible. And, we continue to really look at, how do we ensure that there will be a strong supply chain, going forward.
Greg, Sam posted on X that this deal with AMD is incremental to what's already being done with Nvidia. But as Lisa knows, I've spent quite a lot of time looking at the MI family and the newer generations of products to come. Is there a very clear, specific benefit to using AMD technology for inference relative to the capabilities of Nvidia? Or do you just see it broadly as some sort of diversifying factor?
Well, I would look at it this way, that there's a huge fixed cost to getting AI models running on any platform. And so that when we look at what's out there, that actually getting AI training to work is a huge amount of lift. That's something we've really only done the work for NVIDIA. But for inference, that's something that's much more, that there's a easier barrier to entry there. And one thing we found is that I think that the work that Lisa and team have been doing on the MI450 series, it's looking like it's going to be a really incredible chip. I think that there's the way that these things work is that there's niches for different balances of memory and computational power. And so as we have a diversity of workloads, we're finding that having a diversity of chips also really accelerates what we're able to do.
Lisa, at the beginning of this conversation, I said there are both operational and financial milestones to be met. And Greg explained you got to start somewhere. So in the first instance, 1 gigawatt. But would you just sort of draw out the pathway to that first gigawatt? It seems like you're prepared to move quickly here.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe, Ed, if I can just build on something that Greg said. I think he's absolutely right. We're a believer in there's a diversity of workloads, and there will be a diversity of workloads across, customers, models, use cases. And from that standpoint, we feel really good about how we're positioned. We love the work here because, frankly, OpenAI is the ultimate power user of our chips and tests us in very good ways. So I think that's what gives us confidence that, the technology is there. And then to your point about milestones, yes, I mean, this is, clearly a case where we are tied to each other. The first gigawatt of deployment is super important. We're going to start that, second half of next year, and we're going to build on from there. And it really is not just the technology, but commercial milestones, adoption milestones, and just how we proliferate the capability going forward. But I'm looking forward to building this as fast as possible. We're already working with a number of cloud service providers who are also very active on our technology. And I think this is a great catalyst to get the industry to build faster.
Tied to each other is such an interesting turn of phrase. And Greg, look, you are seeing more AI users and chip makers and designers becoming more financially tied to each other. Is this going to continue? Is this the step forward for how you see this financing going forward?
Well, I really see the world transitioning to this AI-powered economy. And the interesting thing is within OpenAI that we've really seen what it's like when your progress is limited and accelerated as two sides of the coin by computational power. Like teams within OpenAI, that their ability to deliver really is tied to the amount of compute that they get. And I think we're heading to a world where that is how the whole economy will function. And we're starting to see it, right? That people having access to better AI tools, if you're a coder, you're able to do far more if you have access to better AI models. And we're heading to a world where if you can have 10 times as much AI power behind you, you will probably be 10 times more productive. And so I think that we're moving to a world where the whole industry is waking up to the fact that we have just not planned. We have not planned for this moment where this explosion in AI demand is happening. So it's happening all the way from the power to the silicon. And I think this whole industry has to find a way to actually rise to meet the occasion.
Lisa, you have given us a look into the future before about how you see the total addressable market, the industry. Now that the ink is dry with OpenAI and Greg, are you rethinking either your bigger picture analysis of the market for AI accelerators and GPUs, or do you see AMD now having an improved position in that market, relative, of course, to your friends at Nvidia?
Well, Again, I think, and I've told you before, I believe that this is a huge market. We have sized just the AI accelerator TAM being, over $500 billion in TAM over the next few years. I think some might say, maybe I was a little conservative in that TAM analysis. But the way to think about it is there's so much need for compute. I mean, you just heard it from Greg. So, this is a huge pie, and you're going to see the need for, more players coming into it. And, from my standpoint, this is a big validation of our technology and our capability. As much as we love the work with OpenAI, we're working with a lot of other customers as well. There's a lot of excitement in the industry around MI450, so we're ready for it.
What jumped out first is the scale and the specificity. AMD and OpenAI aren't talking about more GPUs in the abstract. They're committing to a phased build-out, first 1 gigawatt of AI compute, ramping to 6 gigawatts, explicitly optimized for inference, not training. That word, inference, is the quiet centerpiece here. Training has been Nvidia's unassailable stronghold because moving a frontier model onto a new platform carries a massive porting cost. Greg Brockman basically says that out loud. The heavy lift to get training right has largely been done on Nvidia, but inference is different. Models that are already trained need to run everywhere, cheaply, quickly, at scale. That's where AMD's next-gen Instinct MI450 shows up in this story. Lisa frames this as a milestone born of years of road mapping with OpenAI joint hardware-software work supply chain design and a willingness to go all in together. Translation. This isn't a spot purchase order, it's integrated planning across engineering and logistics. And they anchor it with a date. First 1 gigawatt deployment in the second half of 2026, then scale from there. If you listened closely, they mention multiple locations, multiple providers. That tells you they're spreading risk across sites, clouds, and power sources to get capacity online as fast as physics and logistics allow. Why inference? Well, because demand is exploding faster than supply can keep up. Greg calls today's environment a compute desert. He points out that there are 800 million weekly active users for ChatGPT, a product that, honestly, didn't even exist 3 years ago. And says they literally hold back features and products due to compute limits. That's the headline macro. The bottleneck is no longer, can we build the model? It's do we have enough electrons, cooling, fiber, and accelerators to serve it to everyone, all the time? If the last 2 years were the AI training boom, the next 5 are going to be about the industrialization of inference. That leads to the second big theme. Power. And I don't mean compute power, I'm talking about the electrical kind. Greg is pretty blunt about it. From energy to silicon, the entire supply chain has to wake up. He even calls out nuclear by name as being important to bring online. That's not just a casual aside, it really signals where hyperscalers and frontier labs are thinking about long-term baseload. If inference at global scale is the goal, intermittent power just won't cut it. So, expect deeper partnerships between AI companies, utilities, independent power producers, and yes, nuclear players. AMD's role here is the silicon and system stack. OpenAI is orchestrating demand and deployment, and the cloud providers and energy partners make it real. Third, let's talk risk and financing, because the interviewer pressed them pretty hard on this. The question behind the question was, AMD is issuing stock tied to delivering that first gigawatt. Are you sure OpenAI can pay? Lisa's answer is confidence plus alignment. She calls it accretive from day one, repeats that as OpenAI buys chips, AMD's revenue and earnings go up, and frames this as a virtuous cycle. Greg's angle is demand-led. AI revenues are growing faster than almost any product category in history, so the economics justify creative financing, equity, debt, hybrids to move faster. None of this guarantees perfect execution, but it tells you both sides believe the usage revenue flywheel will outrun the capex burn if they get capacity online quickly. When it comes to manufacturing, Lisa's message is, well, pragmatic and really tuned into national strategy. AMD is, as she puts it, deeply partnered with TSMC, focusing on the US AI stack wherever possible, and working hard to build a robust, diversified supply chain. She's not closing the door on other options, but she keeps the spotlight on making sure there's a reliable runway for MI450 volumes and beyond. Greg, on the other hand, brings in the geopolitical angle. He says compute is set to become a national security-grade strategic resource, and, to put it simply, every serious economy out there is going to want domestic access to AI compute. That's why you keep hearing about multiple locations and not limiting our sites globally. So, let's talk about platform dynamics for a moment. Greg draws a really clear line. Training is sticky, but inference is way more open. That's actually the wedge AMD needs. He points out that MI450's balance of compute and memory is a great fit for certain inference niches. And Lisa, well, she makes it clear that OpenAI is the ultimate power user that's really pressure testing AMD's stack in real production workloads. If that works out at scale, AMD earns credibility not from fancy slide decks, but from the toughest customer out there. That's how you speed up an ecosystem. Tool chains get better, kernels get tuned, compilers mature, and the next customer finds it easier to jump in. So, what about competition with Nvidia? Lisa isn't out there throwing elbows. She honestly doesn't have to. She keeps coming back to the big picture. The AI accelerator total addressable market is over $500 billion in the next few years, and honestly, that might even be a conservative estimate. If you think demand is really outpacing supply by that much, then it's not a zero-sum game. It's about who can add usable capacity the fastest. In that scenario, diversification isn't just a nice-to-have. It's absolutely necessary. OpenAI is pretty clear. They see AMD as incremental to Nvidia, not a replacement. That helps ease worries about switching costs and makes the whole thing sound more like smart capacity hedging than a platform war. Milestones matter, and they laid out the ladder. First gigawatt, second half of 2026 on MI450. Beyond that, there are staged commercial and adoption milestones across multiple clouds and OpenAI-run sites. The subtext here is that AMD and OpenAI are tied at both a technical and financial hip for this phase. If they hit early milestones, confidence compounds, more sites, bigger orders, better pricing, faster software. But if they slip on chips, on power, on sites, the timeline stretches and cost rise. This is why they're spreading deployments and partners. Let's zoom out to implications. If inference capacity rises materially, product teams can ship features they've shelved for months. You'll see more AI-first experiences in productivity, search, design, code, and voice agents serve faster, cheaper, with better latency. For enterprises, cheaper inference flips ROI math on internal co-pilots and retrieval-augmented systems. For developers, more diverse hardware targets can mean better matching of workloads to the right accelerator, rather than cramming everything onto one flavor of GPU. What are the risks I'm watching? Power first. You can have the chips and still be bottlenecked by megawatts. That's why nuclear, grid interconnects, and on-site generation keep coming up. Second, software maturity. To truly challenge Nvidia economics at scale, AMD's software stack needs to be boring, in a good way, predictable, well-documented with high-performance kernels for the models people actually run. Partnering with OpenAI is the fastest way to harden that stack. Third, logistics and lead times. 6 gigawatts across multiple geos is a multi-year, multi-party construction project. Any weak link, from advanced packaging to networking gear to transformers, can slow the train. And the upside? If AMD proves MI450 is a killer inference part and OpenAI can stand up the first gigawatt on time, it validates the diversified compute thesis. It pressures pricing, it de-risks supply for the broader market, and it unlocks product roadmaps that have been waiting on capacity. In other words, it moves AI from we built a model to we serve a civilization at a lower marginal cost. So here's how I'd summarize the playbook you just heard. Aim inference at the capacity gap, pair it with a power strategy that includes serious baseload spread deployments across clouds and owned sites, finance creatively against rapidly growing revenue use, a power user, like OpenAI, to pressure test the hardware-software stack in the wild. If they execute, we'll feel it not in press releases but in the apps you use daily. More features, faster responses, and a lot less, please try again later. That's my read. If you found this breakdown helpful, drop your thoughts below. Are you Team Compute Desert, or do you think demand cools before supply catches up? And if you want me to dig into MI450 versus Nvidia's latest on inference efficiency and total cost of ownership in a follow-up, just say the word. If you want exclusive stock tips, in-depth analysis, real-time trade alerts, and free investing guides, join the Stocks Galore Patreon today and take your investing game to the next level. Our members there get full in-depth analysis on most of these stocks I mention here. Head over to patreon.com/stocksgalore and become part of our growing community of smart investors. Link is in the description. Don't forget to like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss out on the next important financial investing update. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.